Welcome to today's deep dive. We are tackling a highly practical and honestly a surprisingly profound piece of source material today.
Yeah, we really are.
It's a curated guide titled Five Everyday American Idioms You Need to Know. And on the surface, this looks like a tool designed just to help language learners navigate the confusing waters of native English.
Right, like a basic vocabulary list.
Exactly. But the mission for our conversation today is to actually use this guide as a mirror. So whether you are learning English for the very first time or, you've spoken it your entire life, we are going to explore why these five specific, completely bizarre phrases became the absolute bedrock of daily communication.
It's so true because the guide lays down one fundamental, unbreakable golden rule right out of the gate. And that is, if you try to translate these phrases word for word, they will make absolutely zero sense.
Not at all.
Right. Yeah. They are not literal instructions. They are cultural shorthand. And if you don't understand the underlying psychology of that shorthand, you will find yourself completely lost in everyday conversations. I mean, no matter how good your traditional vocabulary might be.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the absurdity of literal translation is kind of the entire point here.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, a non-native speaker hears one of these phrases, and their brain understandably just short circuits, right? Because they're conjuring up the most ridiculous mental images.
Yeah, totally wild images.
But for native speakers, these phrases are invisible. We toss them back and forth without even a second thought. So to really master what's going on here, we're going to take you on a conceptual journey today.
I love this approach.
Yeah, we are going to use these five idioms to map out a hypothetical day in the life of an average person. We'll start from the very first interaction of the morning, move through the friction of the workday, and then end with the messy social slip-ups of the evening.
It really is a perfect framework because human interaction naturally follows a predictable emotional arc.
Right.
Any given day requires you to initiate contact, identify problems, face things you dread, manage your own exhaustion, and then eventually navigate fragile social bonds.
It's a lot when you lay it out like that.
It is, and our source material gives us one specific idiom for each of those critical phases.
So let's picture the start of this hypothetical day. You walk into a morning meeting, or maybe you're sitting down at a coffee shop for a first date.
Of attention.
Right. Or you're stepping into a crowded room for a networking event. Before any actual work gets done, before any genuine connection happens, there is a literal physical barrier in the room. You have to get past the initial awkwardness of two humans who just don't quite know each other yet.
Yeah, the classic awkward phase.
Exactly, and according to the guide, you have to break the ice.
So the source text defines this idiom as an action taken to relieve tension or to get a conversation started in a social setting. And it specifically highlights those high-pressure environments you just mentioned.
Sure.
First dates, business meetings, party small talk.
Okay, but think about the literal translation for a second here. You're trying to start a professional relationship in a corporate boardroom, and your brain is telling you to grab a jagged ice pick.
It's just a giant weapon.
Right, and start violently hacking at a frozen block of water in the middle of the conference table. I mean, it's a completely deranged image when you really think about it.
It is so deranged.
Yeah.
The imagery is incredibly violent if you take it literally. But the metaphor is actually incredibly precise when you analyze the specific phrasing they use, relieving tension.
How so?
Well, the idiom implies that awkwardness, silence, or unfamiliarity is not just, an absence of sound.
Right, it's more than that.
Exactly. It's a tangible substance. It is a solid, cold, barrier-like ice that has to be actively fractured before any real communication can flow.
Oh, wow. That physical sensation is so real, isn't it?
You feel it immediately.
You really do. You can feel it when you walk into a room where no one is speaking. The silence feels heavy. It feels freezing. People literally, physically stiffen up.
Yeah, their body language totally changes.
They lock their elbows. They cross their arms. Their posture just becomes completely rigid.
They freeze.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And because the atmosphere is frozen, you cannot simply walk through it. You cannot just launch into an intimate conversation or a complex data analysis.
It just bounced right off.
Exactly. If you drop heavy information onto a frozen surface, it just sits there. Or it cracks the ice in a really destructive way. You have to actively exert a specific, calibrated type of social energy to thaw the room.
The source actually provides an incredibly practical example for this. It says, He told a light joke to break the ice before starting the presentation.
That's a classic one.
It is. And that light joke is basically like a social skeleton key. It's this tiny, seemingly insignificant tool, but you slide it into the lock, and suddenly a room full of tense, defensive professionals just opens up.
It functions as a pattern interrupt. A presentation is inherently a high-tension scenario, right? You have a presenter holding authority and an audience tasked with judging the material.
Right. Everybody is on edge.
The ice is very thick. So if the presenter starts immediately with, like, quarterly revenue projections, the audience remains in that evaluative, frozen posture.
They haven't thawed yet.
Exactly. The light joke forces an involuntary physical reaction. A chuckle, or even just a smile, requires people to relax their facial muscles and adjust their breathing. It creates this micro moment of shared vulnerability.
Because the presenter takes a tiny risk by attempting humor, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then the audience validates that risk by reacting. And just like that, the solid barrier shatters. The rigidity is totally gone.
And you have to notice the crucial adjective in the source's example here. It says a light joke.
Oh, that's a good point.
Breaking the ice is an opening maneuver. It requires a really delicate touch. You aren't delivering a 10-minute stand-up routine or, launching into some deeply personal trauma.
That would definitely not break the ice. That would build a wall.
Right. You are just tapping the frozen surface with just enough precision to create a hairline fracture, allowing those social waters to begin flowing.
That sets the stage perfectly for you, the listener, as you navigate your own day. Breaking the ice is just clearing the runway. It's the small talk about the terrible traffic, or commenting on the coffee, or just finding one tiny point of common ground.
Yeah, just finding that one connection.
And once that is achieved, the environment changes entirely. The flow of communication has finally started.
And once the communication is flowing, the demands of the interaction shift entirely.
Right. The real work begins.
Exactly. You move from the polite, surface-level work of initiating contact to the actual substance of why you were there. You have to transition into problem-solving, collaboration, and analysis.
Which means the conversation naturally starts getting complicated, ideas are bouncing around, people are sharing opinions, and the volume goes up. But just because a group of people is talking smoothly doesn't necessarily mean they're actually moving forward.
No, not at all.
You always reach a point in the day where you have to cut through all the noise and identify the absolute core of a discussion. You need extreme precision. And to do that, the source gives us our second idiom. You have to hit the nail on the head.
Yes. The guide defines this as describing exactly what is causing a situation or a problem.
Yeah.
To be precisely right. And the context they provide is specifically about giving a perfect explanation or answer in a confusing scenario.
So let's go back to the literal translation again.
Oh boy.
You are in a sophisticated design meeting. People are intensely arguing over user interface protocols, and somebody suddenly pulls a steel hammer out of their briefcase.
Just unzips the leather bag and grabs a hammer.
Yes, and starts driving galvanized hardware into the drywall of the conference room. It's so absurd. But metaphorically, the impact of this phrase is just massive.
The weight of the phrase comes from the deep satisfaction it conveys, I think. It isn't just about being correct in a vague sort of general way. It is about describing the root cause of a situation without a single millimeter of deviation. The carpentry metaphor works beautifully because hammering a nail requires total accuracy.
That's true.
If you hit the nail at a slight angle, it bends and becomes useless. If you miss the head entirely, you damage the wood around it, or you break your thumb. Imprecision carries a heavy penalty in carpentry and in problem solving.
I find myself constantly bothered by the absolute nature of this idiom, though.
Really? Why is that?
It just feels incredibly rigid. Like, why is there no room for almost here? In the real world, situations are usually nuanced. Problems usually have multiple contributing factors,
Yeah, it's definitely true.
You rarely have a scenario that can be solved by one single perfectly aimed strike. It feels like a binary state, like you either hit the nail on the head or you fail entirely.
Well, it is binary, but I'd argue that is exactly why it is so powerful.
How do you mean?
While the reality of a problem might be highly nuanced, the psychological relief of finally defining the problem feels sudden and absolute.
Ah, I see.
When a group of people is lost in this fog of confusion, clarity doesn't usually arrive gradually. It arrives in a flash. The source actually uses a brilliant example to illustrate this. It says, "You hit the nail on the head when you said the software was too complicated."
Okay, think about the massive amount of frustration that must have preceded that exact sentence.
Oh, weeks of it, probably.
At least, imagine a room full of project managers, developers, and executives. The software is failing, sales are down, the users are furious, everyone is panicking, and because they are smart people, they all have different, highly complex theories.
Everyone wants to prove they know what's wrong.
Right. Marketing thinks the branding is off. The engineers are convinced the server latency is too high. The finance team thinks the pricing model is wrong.
They are circling the problem. They are grazing it. They are overthinking it. Metaphorically, they are hitting the wood and bending the nail over and over again. They are generating a tremendous amount of intellectual friction, but they are not actually driving the project forward. This is a very specific kind of modern agony,
It really is.
just being surrounded by highly intelligent people who are all simultaneously wrong, simply because they refuse to look at the simplest explanation.
And then the quietest person in the room, maybe the intern who actually bothered to read the customer feedback emails, just sighs and says, "None of that matters. The software is just too complicated. People can't figure out how to open the menu." Boom.
The nail is driven flush.
Exactly.
That person did not offer a nuanced, multi-layered theoretical framework. They bypassed all the noise and identified the fundamental root cause. And the immense relief that floods the room in that moment is exactly why the idiom demands binary perfection.
The relief is palpable.
Right. When someone finally articulates the exact problem that everyone else was struggling to name, the debate instantly ends.
It's an intellectual release valve. By hitting the nail on the head, you release everyone from the exhausting burden of defending their incorrect theories. You ground all the abstract panic into one solid point of truth. The diagnosis is finally made.
And just like driving a physical nail, once it is hit perfectly on the head, that specific task is finished. The pieces are joined.
Right, you don't keep hammering a flush nail.
Exactly. The focus of the group can immediately pivot from the exhausting question of what is happening to the productive question of how do we fix it?
But that pivot is exactly where our hypothetical day takes a kind of dark turn.
Yeah, the fun part is over.
Hitting the nail on the head feels great intellectually. You found the problem. The software is too complicated. But knowing the problem means you now carry the terrible burden of having to actually fix it.
The diagnosis inevitably demands a treatment, and the treatment is rarely something you actually want to endure.
Which places us squarely in front of our third idiom.
Here we go.
The ice is broken, the problem is perfectly diagnosed, the path forward is perfectly clear, and you absolutely dread taking the first step. You are facing a massive internal wall of resistance. To get past it, the source guide tells us we have to bite the bullet.
Bite the bullet. So the source defines this as forcing yourself to do something difficult or unpleasant that you have been avoiding.
The avoidance is key.
Totally. The context it provides are highly relatable for everyone, I think. Procrastination, tough decisions, or everyday tasks you deeply dislike.
The imagery here is so dramatic it almost loops back around to being funny.
It really does.
If you don't know the cultural context, you look at a mundane, annoying task like, say, calling your internet provider to dispute a billing error.
The worst.
It is. But to get through it, you announce that you are going to place a metallic lead projectile used in warfare between your molars and bite down with all your might.
Yeah.
It sounds like you are preparing for a gritty amputation scene in a Western movie, not a Tuesday afternoon administrative chore.
What's fascinating here is the contrast between the extreme violence of the metaphor and the mundane reality of the tasks it usually describes. But that extreme imagery exists for a very good reason.
Why is that?
Well, the source guide uses two critical words in its definition: force and avoiding. This idiom is not about the nobility of hard work or like physical endurance. It is entirely about the internal psychological battle against your own procrastination.
The dread is the defining characteristic.
Exactly.
The source gives a wonderfully universal example here. I hate going to the dentist, but I just need to bite the bullet and go. Now, going to the dentist is not objectively dangerous.
Or easily not, no.
It is not a heroic feat of survival, but mentally, it feels like climbing a mountain with a piano tied to your back.
Because the human brain is wired to anticipate and avoid discomfort. We know the dentist involves scraping sharp tools and, likely a stern lecture about our flossing habits.
Always the flossing lecture.
Every time. So we deploy our defense mechanisms. We push the task away. We tell ourselves, I'll call tomorrow. But the avoidance creates a paradox.
How so?
By putting off the minor discomfort of the appointment, we generate a chronic, low-grade anxiety that haunts us for weeks or even months. The unmade appointment becomes this heavy shadow hanging over everything else we do.
Oh, that is so true. We suffer so much more in our imagination than we ever do in the dentist chair.
Exactly.
We build this mundane task into a terrifying, insurmountable ordeal. So to finally break that cycle, to actually pick up the phone and dial the receptionist's number requires a massive concentrated spike of willpower. You have to violently override your own instincts.
And that is the exact moment you bite the bullet. Your biological instinct is screaming at you to flee from the anticipated pain. Biting the bullet is the conscious decision to say, I am going to embrace this temporary, known discomfort right now just to rid myself of the long-term, exhausting anxiety.
Oh, yes.
You strip away any illusion that the task will be fun, you accept the reality of the suffering, and you step forward anyway.
Think about the team from our previous example, the ones who hit the nail on the head. They know the software is too complicated. What does biting the bullet look like for them in that scenario?
Oh, it's brutal.
It really is. It means the lead developer has to go in and delete 6 months of complex code that they proudly wrote.
Painful.
It means the project manager has to walk into the CEO's office, admit total failure, and ask for a massive budget extension. Those are terrifying, stomach-churning tasks. But they are entirely unavoidable if the project is going to survive.
It requires a moment of profound, grim acceptance. You stand at your desk, you take a deep breath, and you force yourself into the fire.
So you've survived the fire, you initiated the awkward conversation, you fought through the confusion to diagnose the problem, and you force yourself to endure the grueling, unpleasant work of fixing it.
Sounds like a full day already.
Right. But human beings are biological creatures. We are not infinite engines of productivity. You can only force yourself through so much dread before the machinery literally starts to break down.
You inevitably hit your absolute limit, which introduces the necessary self-preservation of our fourth idiom. Call it a day.
The source defines call it a day as stopping work on something for the rest of the day. The contexts are, ending a work shift, finishing a study session, or pausing a long-term project.
This phrase is a psychological boundary line. When you invoke this idiom, you are not saying you are quitting the job entirely. You are not abandoning the project forever.
Right, you're coming back tomorrow.
Exactly. You are firmly and without apology declaring that the current allocation of your energy is complete. It is a vital defense mechanism against the endless overlapping demands of modern life.
The example the source gives is something I think every single listener can feel deep in their bones. It says, we've been studying for 6 hours. Let's call it a day.
6 uninterrupted hours of cognitive focus. Just think about that.
Imagine the physical toll of that. Picture hour 1. Your posture is great. Your highlighters are uncapped. You are absorbing complex concepts effortlessly.
You feel invincible in hour 1.
You do. Now fast forward to hour 6. The text on the laptop screen is physically blurring. Your eyes are burning. You read the same sentence about, supply chain logistics 4 times in a row, and you comprehend absolutely none of it. Your brain has essentially turned to static.
You have slammed face first into the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
The sheer effort you are expending is no longer producing any valuable output whatsoever.
None.
In fact, continuing to push forward is likely counterproductive at that point.
Oh.
You are so cognitively depleted that you will start making errors, or you'll develop a deep subconscious resentment toward the material itself.
And I want to highlight a really subtle but vital detail in the source's example here. It says, we've been studying, let's call it a day. It's plural.
Yes.
It is a collective action. This idiom is incredibly common in group settings because it directly addresses the unspoken social pressure of shared endurance.
Group dynamics make exhaustion incredibly complicated, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
In a team setting, nobody wants to be the weak link. Nobody wants to be the first person to admit they are tired because they fear it looks like a lack of commitment or a lack of drive.
Right. You don't want to be the one who gives up.
Exactly. So you end up with an entire room full of people staring blankly at their laptops, trapped in this bizarre, silent performance of productivity, even though every single brain in the room is completely dead.
It's an exhausting game of corporate chicken. Everyone is just waiting to see who will blink first. And then, finally, someone acts as the sacrificial voice of reason. Someone closes their laptop, looks around the table, and utters the magic phrase, guys, let's call it a day.
The shift in the room's energy is instantaneous.
It is a collective, massive exhale. By using that specific idiom, you aren't just expressing your own fatigue, you are granting everyone else permission to acknowledge theirs.
That's a great way to put it. Permission.
You validate the exhaustion of the group. You are essentially saying, we have bitten enough bullets today. The work we have done is sufficient. It is time to stop.
There is a profound power in naming the boundary.
Oh.
You are taking the endless, unstructured flow of time and placing a definitive label on it. You are drawing a box around the effort and saying, this chunk of time we just endured, this constitutes a day. The day is now officially over.
It feels so good to hear that.
It provides psychological closure, which allows you to transition from your working identity back into your resting personal identity.
Which leads us to the final and arguably most dangerous phase of our hypothetical day.
The most dangerous.
Yes. The work is done, the laptop is closed, you've called it a day, the tension of the office is far behind you, you are out with friends, maybe you're at a dinner party, the ice was broken with these people years ago, so there's no tension.
Everyone is comfortable.
Exactly. You have a drink, you are leaning back in your chair, and your guard is completely, totally down.
And psychologically speaking, that state of complete relaxation is precisely when you are most likely to cause a massive disaster.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because when the filters shut off, when you are no longer strictly monitoring every single word you say, secrets have a funny way of finding the exit.
They really do.
Which brings us to our fifth and final idiom from the guide, spill the beans.
So the source defines this as revealing secret information unintentionally or prematurely. The primary contexts they list are gossip, surprise parties, or accidentally dropping movie spoilers.
We have to return to the literal translation one last time because the visual comedy of this one is unmatched.
It's the best one.
Imagine a sophisticated, dimly lit cocktail party. Everyone is dressed beautifully, soft jazz is playing in the background, and suddenly someone reaches into their designer bag, pulls out a massive, steaming 2-gallon bowl of baked beans.
Just dripping in sauce.
Yes, and just hurls it across the hardwood floor.
The horror.
It is a disgusting, chaotic mess, but as a linguistic metaphor for a social mistake, it is a stroke of absolute genius.
Let's focus on the specific adjectives the source uses here. Unintentionally and prematurely. This is a crucial distinction. Spilling the beans is not a phrase used for malicious behavior.
Right.
If an executive sells proprietary company data to a rival corporation, they did not spill the beans. They committed corporate espionage.
Exactly. If you intentionally destroy someone's marriage by revealing an affair out of spite, you aren't spilling the beans. You are launching a targeted emotional strike.
Precisely. Spilling the beans is reserved strictly for the clumsy, well-meaning errors of everyday life. It is an accidental failure of containment. It is the domain of the absent-minded friend who simply forgets where the boundary of the secret lies.
The source provides the quintessential tragedy to illustrate this perfectly. It says, we were planning a surprise party for Sarah, but Mark spilled the beans.
Poor Mark. The classic liability.
Mark never stood a chance. Think about the actual physics of a bowl of dry beans. It's hundreds of tiny, individual, hard little pieces. As long as you keep the bowl perfectly level, as long as the secret is safely contained within your conscious mind, everything is manageable.
But the moment your concentration slips, even slightly, the moment the bowl tilts a fraction of an inch,
gravity takes over immediately, the beans hit the floor, and here's why the metaphor is so brilliant. You cannot simply pick up spilled beans.
no, they go everywhere.
They bounce, they scatter in 100 different directions, they roll under the couch, they fall into the air vents. You can drop to your knees and scramble frantically to scoop them back into the bowl, but you will never, ever find all of them. The mess is totally irreversible.
That irreversible physical chaos perfectly mirrors the social entropy of a prematurely revealed secret.
It really does.
Let's visualize Mark's failure here. Mark is at the grocery store on a Tuesday evening. He's relaxed, he's tired, he's just thinking about buying tortilla chips for the weekend.
Right, totally unguarded.
He turns the corner and bumps right into Sarah. His brain defaults to friendly autopilot small talk, and before his filters can engage, he cheerfully says, "Hey Sarah, so excited for your party on Saturday."
The absolute icy horror that washes over his entire body, the last syllable leaves his mouth.
The beans have hit the linoleum.
They really have.
And the true tragedy of the spilled beans is the simultaneous realization of the mistake and the total powerlessness to fix it. You cannot unspoil a plot twist.
No.
If I tell you the detective was actually the ghost the whole time, I cannot reach into your auditory cortex and scrub that data out. The structural integrity of the surprise has instantly collapsed.
Mark is just standing there next to the avocados, watching Sarah's face morph from confusion to realization. He tries to scramble. He tries to scoop up the beans. He stammers, the party that someone else is throwing, that you are invited to for a totally different Sarah.
It's so painful to watch.
It's pathetic. It's too late. The information is already scattered.
This illustrates why holding a secret is so mentally exhausting, and why surprise parties are notoriously stressful to organize. A secret requires constant active vigilance.
You can't ever let your guard down.
No.
Yeah.
You have to perpetually monitor the perimeter between your internal knowledge and your external speech. When you call it a day and let your defenses down, that perimeter weakens. Organizing a surprise party means you are trusting a dozen highly fallible human beings to perfectly balance their individual bowls of beans without tripping.
And human nature dictates that eventually somebody is going to trip. The pressure of holding the secret almost creates a subconscious desire to just release it. It is a messy, awkward, but perfectly human conclusion to our hypothetical day.
It truly covers the entire spectrum of daily interaction, doesn't it?
It really does.
We started the morning by carefully navigating the freezing temperature of social tension just to break the ice. We achieved a moment of perfect, satisfying clarity by hitting the nail on the head. We confronted our own avoidance and forced ourselves to bite the bullet. We recognized our biological limits and called it a day. And finally, we succumbed to our own clumsy nature and spilled the beans.
Every phase of human effort and error, perfectly encoded in these bizarre little packages of imagery, which brings us to the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener.
The challenge.
Exactly. The source material doesn't just want you to understand these phrases intellectually, it issues a direct challenge. It says, try using at least one of these idioms in your conversation today.
Passive comprehension is a great first step. But true mastery of any concept requires active application. You can listen to the psychological breakdown of these metaphors all day long, but until you actually deploy them in real time, they just remain theoretical.
But, and this is the final vital warning here, we must return to our golden rule from the beginning of the deep dive. Do not translate these word for word in your head before you speak.
Please don't.
If you are stepping up to a podium to deliver a speech, do not visualize a jagged ice pick. If you are diagnosing a supply chain issue with your team, do not think about swinging a steel hammer. If you are facing a dreaded phone call, banish the image of chewing on literal ammunition from your mind.
Because they aren't literal words anymore. They are a shared cultural password. When you utilize one of these idioms appropriately, you are signaling to the person you are speaking with that you understand more than just their vocabulary.
That's a profound way to look at it.
You understand their cultural rhythms. You understand how they conceptualize tension, relief, dread, and exhaustion.
So take the challenge. Find an opportunity today. If you need to establish a boundary because your team is burning out, be the one to step up and say it's time to call it a day. If you've been putting off a difficult conversation for weeks, bite the bullet and just make it happen. Just drop one into your day and feel how it instantly changes the texture of the interaction.
And as you incorporate these into your own life, it leaves us with a much broader, lingering question to consider.
I always love a good lingering thought. What should we be mulling over today?
Well, if concepts like breaking ice, hitting nails, and spilling beans aren't just casual slang, but are actually the preferred, highly efficient tools we use to navigate complex social tension, precision, dread, and human error.
Right.
What does that actually tell us about the nature of language itself?
Oh, that is a phenomenal question, because it implies that language is not just some sterile, logical system for transferring raw data from one brain to another.
Precisely. It suggests that true fluency isn't achieved by memorizing a dictionary or, perfecting grammar rules. True fluency is about embracing the ridiculous, colorful, completely nonsensical mental images that bind a group of people together.
Yeah.
We don't communicate best through clinical robotic precision. We communicate best through shared, vibrant, and incredibly messy metaphors.
We don't just speak in words. We really speak in pictures. We navigate our entire lives through shattered ice, hammered nails, bitten bullets, closed laptops, and scattered beans.
And learning to maneuver through those pictures, that is the genuine art of human connection.
Beautifully said. So go out there and paint some pictures today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an absolute blast exploring the weirdness of everyday language with you. Now, if you'll excuse us, we've been analyzing linguistic metaphors for quite a while now, and I think it's time for us to, well,
Call it a day.
see you next time.